So, you just had Christmas dinner, and you're not really sure. You're panicking. You don't know what to do, and you definitely don't know who to bet. But don't worry. I gotcha. Welcome, football fans, grid, iron, gamblers, and all of my degenerates. It's Mitch here to help you out in NFL Week 17, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and give you my last minute best bets. This is the video where I break down some of my favorite bets of the week. I'm talking spreads, totals, teasers, win margins, player props, and anything I can get my hands on to win you some money. Because after all, this is none other than Money Mitch. And I'm Money Mitch. So it's time, jabronis, degenerates, football fans, to Gronk, spike the like button, and let me know in the comments your favorite bets of the week. Let me break down some of mine. Just a reminder that I do have a Patreon, and for $5 a month, you can get all of my bets every week of the NFL season, including the playoffs. Let's kick it off with Saturday, one of my favorite bets of the week. And guys, I have an absolute money pick on Patreon, so I'm giving you a reason to go check out Patreon right now for the Texans game. Texans-Chargers. I like the Texans, but I have a very specific same game parlay that's going to make you some money. So check out Patreon. Trust me. Trust me on this one. But I will give you out one of my picks for the game between the Texans and the Chargers. And we're going back to the well of the win margins. This is going to be the Texans to win by 1 to 6 points. It's plus 325 or around plus 300. If you can find this bet, take it and run. I like the Houston Texans to win. I like it to be a grinder of a football game, a low-scoring affair, a defensive battle, and I believe that the Texans defense is going to terrify Justin Herbert, sack Justin Herbert 4, 5, 6, 7 times, and win this game by 1 to 6 points. I think that the Texans, just as they did in the wild card round last year, are going to get pressure on Herbert. I think they're going to be sticky in the secondary, and I think they're going to get stops. I also think that the offense is probably even more formidable than last year. I think it has a little bit more in its short passing game. CJ right now is playing with pretty good confidence, although he wasn't great against the Raiders. The Chargers can be ran on, and I do think the Texans will take advantage of that. I think they will play power football, conservative, play field position. They have a good kicker. They're going to stay in this game, and they're going to put their faith in their defense to constantly get third down stop after third down stop. And I think they're going to dominate the line of scrimmage. I think they're going to be able to get pressure on Herbert. I think they're going to be able to slow down the Chargers in the run game well enough. And I think they are going to be able to run it well enough to open up some passing plays down the field against this Chargers secondary. Both have great defenses, but the Texans defense is just that much better. They've only allowed more than 21 points twice this season. Twice. That's it. And they've played some of the best offenses in football on a weekly basis. And I even think one of the games they allowed a kick return to push it over 21. So, yeah, I like the Texans to win this game. I think it's going to be very close. I think it's going to be defensive. But I think that the Texans come out on top thanks to Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson, D'Amico's defense. And if you want to check out a more in-depth breakdown than I just gave you right there, I would check out my spread picks video because I do talk about the Texans getting a point and a half, or simply taking their money line as one of my best bets this week. But Texans by 1-6 plus 325 is the official pick for this video. Check out Patreon for my real best bet of the game. Trust me on it. Okay, let's talk about the other game on Saturday, because there is another game. Saturday night, the Green Bay Packers and the Baltimore Ravens. Not as appetizing or exciting, in my opinion, in terms of playoff circumstances, just playoff feel, as the Texans and Chargers. I think this game is going to be similar in terms of most people are going to believe it's going to be a lower scoring game. I think both of these totals are under 40. The Texans game, I think, is closer to 40 even. This game is more about 38 and a half. And I actually think this is wrong. I actually am looking for ways to potentially look at an over between these teams. You could play the over 38 and a half, Packers, Ravens. And I think the biggest reason is I think these quarterbacks in these systems are underrated. And I honestly think the difference between Snoop Huntley and Lamar Jackson isn't as big as people think. It hasn't been as big as people think this year. I thought Huntley looked composed against the Patriots. He is the only quarterback on the Ravens to beat a team above 500 this season, which he was able to do against the Bears earlier this year, and they scored 30 points in that game. So he's shown enough in their system. They have Derrick Henry to run the football against a front that is not quite as good as it was. I'm still looking at this Packers defense and saying, without Parsons, I don't think their pressure or their pass rush is as overwhelming. Without Devontae Wyatt, I don't think their pressure or their pass rush is as overwhelming. And I think both of them are fairly good run defenders too. So I think the Ravens will be able to run the ball a bit. I think that they'll be able to throw the football because they should have some ability to win with Zay Flowers against these corners of the Packers, and then also just pick up some easy yards against zone coverage. And Huntley is pretty good at deciphering coverage and just checking it down or throwing short passes. Like, he definitely can do that. He's not as explosive or as elusive or as much of a playmaker as Lamar, but I don't think you necessarily have to do that against the Packers because they play so much zone. I feel like you can kind of just sit there and pick them apart underneath a lot and then run the football. So that's that side of things. The Ravens kind of have a lackluster pass rush, so Malik Willis should be comfortable at home. The Ravens have been up and down against the run, and the one thing about the Packers with Willis is he gives them a prominent and really a problem of a run game. With Willis, they are an elite run game. They do so much with his ability, his legs, his ability to move and run. That sets up the PA boot game. He's also, going to throw those screens and stuff, those yak plays that Matt LaFleur has within the offense. He's not as good as a downfield passer. He's not as, I would say, explosive as Jordan Love, but Willis is a good athlete. He's got a strong arm. He can push the ball down the field if you overplay the run. And the run game is so good that teams will have to overplay it, which is going to open up some plays, I think, on crossing routes and potentially some big yak plays from Reed and Watson and others. So I actually think both these quarterbacks and both these offenses are a bit underrated entering this game. Both teams to score 20 plus points is also a pretty interesting bet if you can find it. Plus 240 is where I found it. And, that's suggesting that's a pretty big underdog for both these teams to get 20. But I think over 38 and a half as the main bet. And then both teams to score 20 plus at plus 240 as the long shot. Both, I think, are worth looking at. I wouldn't say it's the best bet of the day or the night, but I do think that both these offenses, with their backup quarterbacks, are capable against underwhelming pass rushes to move the football. I think the Packers greatly benefited from playing in a very windy game against Chicago last week. I will say that. Now, let's keep the focus on totals and go with the Patriots over team total 29.5 at even money. So the Patriots to score 30 points against the Jets. The Jets are one of the worst defenses in football, and they also have Will McDonald, their best pass rusher, not playing in this game. So if I were to look up their depth chart, guys, I couldn't even say off the top of my head, somebody that knows all 32 teams like the back of my hand and covers the NFL, I couldn't even tell you right now what the front four of the Jets really consists of. I don't really follow the Jets at that close of a rate at this point in the year. So without Will McDonald, their defensive front will be Harrison Phillips, who can't rush the quarterback, Jawan Briggs, if you know who that is, Jermaine Johnson, who's decent, and Michael Clemens, most likely. And then other names include Mozzie Smith, who's a bust, Eric Watts. I mean, there is no pass rush for this team whatsoever, okay? The Jets also have had one of the worst linebacker positions in football this year, and their starting corners are Quantez Stiggers, Brandon Stevens, and Jordan Clark, and some guy at safety named Dean Clark. I don't even know who some of these guys are. Like, I have no idea. So yes, the Patriots are on the road. Yes, the Patriots are without Will Campbell. And yes, they're without Kayshon Boutte and Mac Hollins, and they're missing some receivers. But they still have Stephon Diggs, their main weapon. Hunter Henry, their second main weapon. Travion is playing in this game at running back. Stevenson is still there. Austin Hooper, Kyle Williams, who can fly and probably will make a couple big plays, and Demario Douglas. So I'm not really worried that Drake May is not going to have time. He certainly will. The Jets might have to blitz to get pressure, which is also going to lead to Kyle Williams and Stephon Diggs torching down the field, and you can run the ball on the Jets. I mean, this is a pretty good bet. The Patriots to score 30 points. I also think there's a little bit of a narrative here, or a little bit of a push for Drake May to have a big statistical day. One, he's never thrown 4 touchdowns. Last week, he threw for 300 yards for the first time in his career. Maybe he could throw for 4 touchdowns here, which is essentially 28 points. If he could do that, that would certainly help his MVP case, which he's still in the running for, especially if Matthew Stafford were to be like the 5 seed in his conference, and the Patriots, let's just say, were able to overtake the Broncos as the 1 seed in the AFC. Would that change the opinion of some voters? Just throwing that out there. But let's look at what the Jets have allowed lately. 29 to the Saints, who are not a good offense, certainly not as good as the Patriots. 48 to the Jags, probably a similarly caliber offense to the Patriots. 34 to the Dolphins. 24 to the Falcons with Kirk Cousins. And then they did allow 27 earlier in the year to the Patriots on the road. But New England certainly could have scored more. That was also a game where the Jets had more defensive players. They also had Justin Fields at quarterback. They were also, able to run the ball a bit better, but the Patriots had 23 first downs, 336 total yards, 31 minutes of possession. They easily could have scored. Drake May had 281 yards and a touchdown. They easily could have scored 30 points. But yeah, I think that the Patriots will score 30 in this game, especially considering what that corner group looks like, what that defensive front looks like. I think Drake May toasts the Jets, plus 100 over 29.5. Now, a couple game totals that I think are interesting. The Cardinals and the Bengals over 53.5. Joe Burrow versus Jacoby Brissett. 4 out of 7 of the Cardinals' opponents, 4 out of the last 7, have scored 40-plus points on their own. The Cincinnati Bengals could certainly be one of those teams that scores 40 points. Last week, they absolutely went nuclear against Miami. The Cardinals also have a ton of injuries on defense. I don't even know. I'm going to look this up right now just to see who exactly, if they've ruled anyone out yet. But it's not looking promising for the Cardinals defense. So they have ruled out, actually not many defenders, but they have a lot of guys on the, they did rule out Budda Baker, which is a pretty big one. They also, I know, have who's the corner? I was going to say Greedy Williams. Garrett Williams. Greedy Williams, former corner of the Browns. Garrett Williams, their nickel corner, is on IR. Max Melton is questionable. Jalen Thompson is questionable. Will Johnson is questionable. Josh Sweat hasn't practiced all week. He's probably out, I would assume. I don't know why they would play him. So they might be missing their 3 best defensive players. Budda Baker, Josh Sweat, and Garrett Williams. That would be pretty big, in my opinion. Also, looking at the Bengals, Joseph Osai is out, and he's probably their best pass rusher after Trey Hendrickson, and so their top 2 pass rushers are out. So that's pretty big against the Cardinals, who have a pretty bad offensive line. The offensive line of the Cards is in pretty rough shape, especially considering Paris Johnson is out. So that hurts a little bit, but you're more so hoping that the Cardinals, against maybe the worst defense in the league, can score about 20 points, and that the Bengals can score like 34. And I feel like that's pretty fair. I think when you look at the Cardinals and how Jacoby Brissett has played, he's putting up yards, and they've been able to score some points. They also have all their healthy weapons, essentially. Like Marvin Harrison's playing, Michael Wilson is playing, Trey McBride might go for 300 yards against the worst tight end defense in the league in the Cincinnati Bengals. And they have enough of a run game to threaten the Bengals as well, with Michael Carter on the ground, DeMarcado on the ground. So, yeah, I look at this game as I think Jacoby Brissett has played pretty solid. I think that the Bengals, with a lackluster pass rush, it doesn't really matter as much that the Cardinals have a bad offensive line. They do have great receiving weapons, and I think they'll be able to push the ball, especially if the Bengals get in front, to where the Cardinals have been money in garbage time this year, throwing the football and putting up points. On the other side, I just don't know how the Cardinals stop Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Mike Gesicki, Chase Brown. The Cardinals have been terrible on defense. They have numerous injuries. There's nothing to play for. The Bengals went crazy last week. They're at home this week. They'll have the crowd on their side, the command on their side, and yeah, Burrow working from the line of scrimmage against a defense that can't really rush and get pressure, especially if Josh Sweat doesn't play. Can't really go one-on-one on the outside with Jamar Chase and company. Just look at what they did to Miami. So I think the Bengals are going to score in the higher 30s, 37, 38, maybe 40 to be the 15 out of 8 to do that. And then the Cardinals, I think, will score 20 to 27. I wouldn't be surprised by that. So, yeah, I think this game's certainly going over this week. Another sneaky over. I think this is mispriced. Tennessee, New Orleans. New Orleans at Tennessee. Over 39.5. Tennessee has moved the ball and scored points lately. They have scored 31, 24, 26, and 24 in 4 of their last 5. Say that again. The total is 39.5. Tennessee scored 31 at Cleveland. They scored 26 against the Chiefs. They scored 24 and 24 against, I think, the Niners and the Seahawks, if I'm not mistaken, like playoff teams. We're talking playoff teams here. Now they're playing the Saints. Tennessee's been running the ball well. Cam Ward is throwing the ball down the field. And their young receivers are balling. They're playing pretty good football. Chigakonkwo's not playing bad. So, yeah, Tennessee has played a lot better. And they're at home for this game. So that will hurt New Orleans' defense. New Orleans' defense is fine, but it's nothing special. They're pretty good against the run, but they can definitely give up some plays in the secondary. On the other side, Tennessee has a pretty good interior pass rush, Jeff Simmons and Tavondre Sweat, but their corners are really bad, and Tyler Shuck has been really good. So basically, I'm just banking on these two young quarterbacks ascending down the stretch. Tennessee has shown us production, 31, 24, 26, 24. Tyler Shuck keeps getting better with every single game, throwing 40 times a game. That slows the game down. There's incompletions that stop the clock. That's pushing the ball. More passing, more points, right? And I think New Orleans is playing the best opponent they've played in terms of, hey, we can push the ball and pass here, because Tennessee is the worst cornerback group maybe in the league. They're right up there with the Jets right now. So, I think that both of these young quarterbacks are going to have success, and I really like how Tennessee's running the ball. New Orleans is going to use Taysom Hill in some funky ways. Chris Olave is playing really well. Jawan Johnson's playing well. So, yeah, I think they're both going to get to the 20s. I think this is a comfortable over. I could see a 27-23 football game, and this is priced at 39.5. So, yeah, I like the over. Now let's talk some teasers. I really do like the Texans in a teaser. As mentioned, I think the Texans will win. So why not take them from 1.5 through 3, 4, 6, and 7. Get them to 7.5. So a lot of key numbers there. Tennessee is a team that I actually think will win this game at home. They're getting 10 at 2.5 against the Saints. I think it'll be a close, as I said, kind of low-key, higher scoring game, or at least in the 20s. But I think getting to 8.5 with the home team, two fairly even teams. Tennessee's playing well. They're scoring points, as I mentioned. Get them to 8.5, so you get them past 3, 4, 6, 7, and 8, a full one possession to make it a 2-possession game that the Saints have to win by over a Tennessee team at home. Yeah, I really like Tennessee with the Texans at 8.5. And then on Monday night, take the Rams down from 8 to 2. So the Rams under a field goal to beat the Falcons. I do think the Falcons could compete with the Rams, but I don't think they'll win. And if the Rams do win, they're likely to win by 3 or more, especially considering the spread is 8. I don't think I have to describe that or explain that, but the teaser of the week, and I usually like 3-team teasers, guys, because it is plus money. It's usually like plus 160 when you do 3 teams as opposed to 2 teams where they kind of rob you at like minus 130 sometimes. It's pretty ridiculous. But Texans plus 7.5, Titans plus 8.5, Rams minus 2. That's our 3-team teaser for the week. Okay. The Buffalo Bills and the Philadelphia Eagles. I like the Bills, as you guys know, this week. I think my best bet for that game, beyond just the Bills winning, I also think that taking the Bills at a half final double result bet of plus 190 is really good odds, because I think if the Bills get ahead, they're going to win. I don't see how the Eagles come back in this game. I think if the Bills fall behind, though, they're still likely to win. But at plus 190, I just like the odds of like, hey, Bills are going to get ahead. Now they can play pass defense and they can run the ball, which is exactly what they're good at. And they have the home crowd and the weather advantage. So there's a lot of things there. But I think you could almost like even this out. I think James Cook scoring a touchdown at minus 110 is a really good bet. Like, I think James Cook is nearly guaranteed to score a touchdown, as close as anyone could be to score a touchdown, and you're still near even money on that bet. So yeah, I would take that, and I almost feel like that's one of those scenarios where I could be a little bit more risky on the Bills half final bet at plus 190, try to get my money back with a James Cook touchdown if it doesn't work out. But I still feel like James Cook's going to score no matter how this game turns out. If they're ahead, yeah, probably. If they're behind, still, yeah, probably. Sure, Jalen Carter's back, but the Eagles have shown susceptibility to the ground game. Look at the Bears. The Bills kind of can run the ball on everybody, and James Cook has been low-key one of the most electrifying, explosive backs in the league. And yeah, they do run Josh Allen at the goal line, but they also run James Cook at the goal line. So I think he will score a touchdown in this game. Another interesting double result bet is the Bucks at plus 110. What I've noticed from the Bucks lately is that they've had pretty good 2-3 quarters. And usually Todd Bowles' defense plays pretty well in the first half, and then they kind of fall apart in the second half. Typically, he has a good switch up or game plan or curveball for the opposing offense he's facing in the early portion of the game. And then the other team seems to kind of figure it out and then take advantage of some of the aspects of the Bucks that are not so good. But the Bucks are stronger against the run than the pass, which is a good thing when you're playing Miami right now, especially with Quinn Ewers. Miami doesn't have really anything to play for. And beyond Jalen Waddle, there isn't really a lot of weaponry on Miami. So I think this is a game where the Bucks certainly have to win it. Like, they have to win it to keep their season alive. And I think when you're on the road facing a team that doesn't have much to play for, if you can get ahead and start strong, they kind of fold. So I think that's what could happen. So the Bucks at plus 110, I think it's worth the look rather than laying 6 points on the road. That's why I would take the double result of Bucks to lead at half and win the game. Now let's talk some quarterback props, specifically touchdowns. Drake May over 1.5 is at minus 140. You could parlay that with Jacoby Brissett over 1.5 at minus 125. By the way, guys, Jacoby Brissett has hit the over one. And by the way, Drake May hit last week against the Ravens, and that was a recommendation. If you were to look at Jacoby Brissett, it's pretty crazy, but I'm pretty sure he has hit 2 passing touchdowns in every single game except for last week. So last week he threw 1 touchdown against the Falcons, but otherwise he threw 3 against Houston, 2 against the Los Angeles Rams, 2 against Tampa, only 1 against Jacksonville, but he threw for 317 yards and 49 attempts. That's pretty rare that you only throw 1 touchdown. And then all the other games, 2 against the Niners, 2 against the Seahawks, 2 against the Cowboys, 2 against the Packers, 2 against the Colts. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 out of 10 games, Jacoby Brissett has thrown 2 touchdowns. So at minus 125, that's beautiful against the Bengals. Those odds should be different. So Drake May, Jacoby Brissett, combine that as a parlay if you like. If you want to get bold, some others that are interesting, Tyler Shuck over 1.5 at plus 155. That's really good odds against one of the best corner or one of the worst corner groups in the league, as I mentioned earlier, the Tennessee Titans, in a game that I think will be a little higher scoring. They're favored on the road in that game, guys. And then Phillip Rivers over 1.5 touchdowns at plus 135. He was able to do that in the first quarter against the 49ers. So just throwing that out there. Jacksonville also lost Jordan Lewis, possibly their best corner on their team. In my opinion, their best corner on their team. So if I were to check Tyler Shuck too, Tyler Shuck hasn't done, 2 touchdowns very often, but he is throwing, like last week he threw 49 attempts. He had 300 yards and 1 touchdown. It's pretty crazy that he hasn't thrown 2, to be honest. He threw 2 against Miami and Carolina, but, he is probably the least likely just given the track record so far. But again, he's playing the Titans. So throwing that out there. Rivers and Shuck are more bold. I think you should do a Drake May, Jacoby Brissett parlay. That would be positive, plus money. I'm not exactly sure what it would be, but minus 140 plus minus 125. And then Shuck and Rivers is also like 2 long shots that I might look at as well. And to finish this video off, guys, and by the way, remember, you can get all of my bets that I'm actually making with my real money on Patreon, $5 a month for the rest of the season, including Saturday and Sunday this week. Sunday Night Football is where I want to finish. The 49ers are the side for me, and I nearly put them as a best bet, and I kind of regret not doing it because the Raiders games kind of become a mess, and I like the Raiders, but then Max Crosby's been ruled out, so just as like a reminder to you guys, I probably wouldn't bet that any longer. I just think it's too much of a mess, but I think the Raiders will win, but even without Max Crosby. But that being said, I probably wouldn't bet it at this rate. Andrew Thomas is out for the Giants, if that matters. But Sunday Night Football, the 49ers -3. And I also would take win margin bets here. I think the 49ers, my favorite is to win by 1-13 at plus 110. So it's a difference of Niners -3 is like minus 115. Niners to win by 1-13 is plus 110. So that's a pretty significant gap in terms of the money you get back if you're able to find that bet. The Niners are likely to win this game, but probably not by 2 touchdowns or more, just because the Bears are a good team and the Bears can score, and the Niners do have a suspect defense. My biggest worry here about the Niners is their defense, again, like every week, but that was the worry against the Colts, and it didn't really seem to matter because Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan are on a heater. And I do think George Kittle is going to play, but if he doesn't, Jake Tonjes is pretty capable of a pass catcher. I do think that does hurt their run game, but I'm not going to say it helps their passing game, but it makes them pass more, which could lead to, the Niners maybe gaining a lead quicker in this game and the game maybe not being as close early in the game. But that being said, the Niners could get Ricky Pearsall back. I would actually argue that he probably will play. He's had 3 straight practices as a limited participant. Kittle, we should know maybe by Saturday night, maybe Sunday morning, but I think he's going to try and play, maybe on a limited basis, but we saw what the Niners offense was able to do. Right now, they might be operating at the highest level in the league, the way that their offensive line is playing and performing. You think about the Bears defense. I mean, they're all turnovers or nothing. Their run defense is susceptible. Their pass rush is non-existent. The Niners have a clear line of scrimmage advantage on that side of the ball. They have Ricky Pearsall, Jawan Jennings, Christian McCaffrey, possibly George Kittle, right? Guys that can separate, get open, make plays on 3rd down. Brock Purdy's been excellent on 3rd down. Shanahan is humming right now with his play calling. And the Niners maybe had their most perfect game of the year last season against the Bears defense. I think they put up like 40 points or 38 points or something in that game. And that was a bad Niners team. So just throwing that out there. Different Bears team. But I do think the Bears have kind of benefited from playing a lot of teams that are not as capable of scoring points as the Niners. And I think that allows them to stay in games. The Bears often fall behind for some reason. I don't know if that's because of Caleb. That doesn't appear to be a Ben Johnson thing, because Ben Johnson in Detroit would seemingly go up really big in games and then lose the lead, if anything. But when you look at the Bears, I mean, they just look at them. So they beat the Bengals 47-42. That was one of the games where they were pressed, but that's the Bengals defense. The Giants 24-20, right? At Vikings, they won 19-17. They were trailing in that game. They beat the Steelers and Mason Rudolph 31-28. They played the Eagles in probably their most convincing win of the year, 24-15. At Philly was probably their best game, but the Eagles' offense is broken, right? They played at the Packers. They lost 28-21. They were down pretty much all game. The Browns, they beat, who cares, 31-3. And then they played the Packers again, a game that they should have lost against Malik Willis, and they won 22-16 in overtime. So if you're really looking at, like, they played the Commanders, the Saints, the Ravens without Lamar, they really haven't played a team, in my opinion, that is as good as the Niners, except for maybe the healthy Packers in Green Bay. Like, that's about it. Because I wouldn't include the Packers team that we just saw. And then before that, they played Vikings, Detroit, who they got hammered by, Dallas, the Raiders. So yeah, like, guys, I think this is the best team the Bears have played all year. And this is certainly the best offense they've played since Cowboys. And I don't even know if the Cowboys are as good as them. So, like, I'm just saying. And if the Bears do get behind in this game, they're in trouble. I don't think they're coming back, even against the Niners defense. I will say the Niners are better against the run than the pass, which I think against Chicago is probably a good thing for San Francisco. I think that their defensive line is healthier. I am worried about Renardo Green missing this game, but at least Roma Dunze isn't playing, so that's kind of like big perimeter corner for X-receiver. Pass up. Luther Burden's more of like a quick, shifty slot guy that catches screens. DJ Moore could have some success, but Lenore's a good corner to track him inside and outside. I think Salah's going to have some things up his sleeve defensively for Caleb. I don't trust Caleb as much as others. I think Purdy is far better than Caleb. Caleb's inaccurate. He's inconsistent, and that's part of the reason they get behind in games. And if they do get behind, it's harder to run the ball when you get behind. Unless, the Bears defense all of a sudden just shuts down the Niners, which I just don't think is going to happen. So, yeah, I like Kyle here. I like Salah here. I like the Niners in primetime at home. The Niners in primetime this year are undefeated. McCaffrey's had some of his best games in primetime. He's trying to get 1,000 and 1,000. Niners are trying to win that number 1 seed. There's a lot more incentive for them than Chicago. Yeah, I think the Niners are the better team. Niners are at home. Niners are in primetime. I hope Kittle plays. I do. If not, it scares me a little bit. But the bets here, Niners laying points. But my favorite, if you can find it, is Niners by 1-13. Because I could see like a 31-20, 31-24. Something like that. I could see that. So, let me know what you guys think of my last-minute best bets for Week 17. Don't forget the Patreon. Gronk spike the like button. And subscribe. Jabroni. Peace.